Listen, other than Alabama being good, I mean, even that we don't know how good. How can you even rank teams 1 through 7 in the SEC West? It's absolutely crazy. We will go over that today. The rankings from the media, SEC Media Days, rankings 1 through 7 in the SEC West, right here on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the show. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. You can follow me on Twitter right there, at the Stephen Willis. And of course, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. We got a lot of stuff to get to today. It's just going to be me today. Tomorrow will be, I think Stuart Patridge is interviewing, so the day after it might show up, like Wednesday or Tuesday. I don't know exactly how it'd go, but we're going to get him on this week. We're trying to set it up with Bill Flowers as well. We're trying to get the former player perspectives kind of filled up after the good week that we had last week. So I want to talk about a little bit the SEC Media Day rankings. Here you go. SEC Media Day rankings. And other than Alabama having a good team, I just don't know what justification you have to put any school anywhere. It's absolutely amazing. Like we will start from the bottom and work up towards the top. And you got Auburn at the 7th position. Everybody assumes Auburn is going to get to the 7th position, because Auburn was a train wreck last year, especially at the end of the year with TJ Finley at quarterback. After Bo Nix got hurt, they suffered a little bit. Now they've brought in Zach Calzada and Robbie Ashford, and Brian Harsin had a really good media days, and he was very well received. I love that within the first paragraph of his opening remarks at SEC Media Days, he basically just told the boosters, you guys failed. Now let's see what's going on. And everything goes. He's a good football coach, guys. He's going to be all right. Now, they have some line issues at Auburn that is going to hold them back. Gus Malzahn did a horrible job recruiting the offensive line at Auburn, which is weird because they were a running team to begin with. But they had a horrible time of replacing that and getting that built up as well. But they have them predicted at 7. Now, I kind of see them falling somewhere, and this is just opinion based off of last year, honestly, somewhere between 5 and 7. That's kind of Auburn's ceiling this year, I think. But somewhere between 5 and 7, I think they would be able to get that done, and it's going to be all right. It's going to look pretty good. And if you do that, you know, they might be the team that you can pigeonhole the most about. But Auburn every year has to play Georgia. They have to play Alabama. I mean, they almost have 8 and 4 built into their schedule, even when they have a good team, because of who they have to play. So 5th to 7th, and if you want to put Auburn on the lower end of the spectrum, I can see that. Now, once we hit the next teams, it kind of becomes interchangeable. It's almost the next 5 teams is interchangeable. And you can make arguments for all of them to finish 2nd and all of them to finish 6th. But 6th is Mississippi State. And the year 3 Mike Leach thing is a very real thing. You can absolutely see how it goes, and at every stop he's been to. At Washington State, they won in year 3. At Texas Tech, they won in year 3. It's designed to build the number of reps and to develop the muscle memory, because it's a little bit of a quirky offense. But the flip side of that is a lot of teams have kind of figured out what they're doing. What used to be a high-flying Texas Tech offense that could put 700 yards on somebody is now somebody you might throw for 380, run for 20 for 400 total yards, and the final score of the game is 24-17. It's a pretty standard offense at this point. And the thing that I think holds Mississippi State back and that could absolutely see them finish 7th as well, is their schedule. Their schedule this year is brutal. Absolutely brutal. They play Georgia, Alabama. It is one of the toughest schedules in the country. They've got Kentucky as their Eastern Division team. Kentucky and Georgia are the Eastern teams. I mean, and it's rough. And you've got A&M, and you got the Bama, and you got Arkansas. All these teams that are really good playing against Mississippi State. So you can see how Mississippi State could go 4-8 this year. Even as good as Will Rogers is, even as good as those wide receivers are going to be, you can see how it could go sideways and belly up on them. Now, like I said, the year 3 Mark Leach thing, it's happened at both locations. It is not worth overlooking at this point. So we'll pay attention to what they're doing. They probably can finish somewhere between 4 and 7 is where they should figure out and where they should fall on the rankings. The next one is LSU. And LSU is a team that can finish 2nd and they can finish 7th. Nobody has as wide of a berth here as LSU. I mean, they take up both lanes of the highway. It's crazy. No matter what they're doing, they're just oversized what's going on. Now, is Jaden Daniels going to be the guy at LSU? Is Miles Brennan going to win the job? I do not know. All I do know is this, and nobody needs to make fun of Brian Kelly because Brian Kelly has won everywhere he's been. So that should tell you that he's going to win at LSU. And LSU has some talented players. Kayshon Boutte. Those guys, the running backs coming back, there's a nucleus there. But I think 6-6, 7-5 might be the norm this year. And this will be the year to get LSU because with Brian Kelly, they're going to turn it around a little bit. I mean, it's just the way he's always done it. He will turn it around and get it going the right direction. It's absolutely crazy. But that's the bottom of the league. And as you can see, even Auburn, you can make a case for them finish 5th. For LSU, you can make them finish anywhere but 1st. Mississippi State, probably 3rd, 4th to 7th. There's such a wide range that you can count on hitting for these teams. And because of that, it's just going to be really hard to, keep them in line. As a team that's booking, when you look at the last 3, we got 4 left to go. But if you look at those last 3 teams, you can all see their flaws. You can also all see their path to being better than what they're supposed to be. Tank Bigsby at Auburn is a legit player. But with that offensive line, it's kind of like, having a Ferrari in a trailer park. And Auburn generally does well when they're not expected to do well. And we will see if the Lions can overcome what they are. Because they lost some people on the defensive line, which maybe that might not be as good as it was. I mean, Derek Mason left that staff for like half the money. There's some problems over on the Plains at the moment. Some real problems. And we'll see exactly how that sits. But first, though, I want to tell you about Built Bar and the Coconut Brownie Chunk Puff. From the people that invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste bud. You've probably tried the amazing Coconut Brownie Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have gone and giving the Coconut Brownie Chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right, Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Bar flavor that you love and a deliciously chewy marshmallow. Covered in 100% real chocolate, it's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. They are good for you as well. They're low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and all delicious. Coconut Brownie Chunk Puffs are only here for a limited time, so go to Built.com to make sure that you do not miss out. They're going to go fast because they taste amazing. So this is what I want you to do. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15, all one word, LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor. We're running a little bit of a competition. If we get to 2,000 subscribers before the Troy game, we will do a pregame show. If we don't, if we come up just short, we will not. There is no second prize. It's like Ricky Bobby rules. You're either first or you're last. So we will try to do that for a pregame show for the Rebels this fall. 2,000 subscribers. So if you have subscribed, please tell a friend. If you haven't, please do. And also subscribe, follow, do whatever you do to the other social things. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. We have a private group, by the way, on Facebook as well that you are free to join. It's Positively Ole Miss, and you'll see the Locked On logo when you get in there. But we're up to, that private group is up to nearly 1,500 people at the moment. So it's growing. Everything is growing up. And more people are kind of joining our movement of just wanting college sports to be fun again. There's so many things going on around it. It needs to be fun, or they're just going to start losing people in droves. The moment they try to make it not fun, they're going to lose people, period. So we are going over the SEC Media Day media picks for the SEC West today. In the first segment, we started at Auburn, we did Mississippi State, and we did LSU. Now, let's kind of move on a little bit. And for now, we will skip over number 4, Ole Miss, because I want to come back to them in segment 3. They'll all basically be all segment 3. Number 3 is Arkansas. And they're another team that could probably finish second. They can probably finish 7th. They're going to go as far as KJ Jefferson takes them. They do not have Trayvon Burks. Their running game is going to be better. They're going to look like a physical version of Ole Miss running the football. Picture the backs that they had, and like when Snoop Connor was back there, it's going to look a lot like that. And they're going to scheme some stuff up based off that. Now, Kendall Briles is from the Baylor tree, as was Jeff Lebby. Now, both Kendall Briles and Jeff Lebby has worked for Lane Kiffin, so Lane Kiffin's basically from that tree as well. He's as much of it as Josh Heupel at this point. So the offenses are going to vary and look a little bit differently, but it's kind of a right church, wrong pew type situation to where Arkansas can get really good. So, but it will be imperative on KJ Jefferson to make the throws, to throw the ball, to do what he needs to do to be a superpower, because this year, now that Trayvon Burks is gone, he's kind of the dude. And you're going to see a lot of quarterback powers and all of the stuff that they did with Cam like 15 years ago, because that was new back then and worked effectively. Now you just have a 250-pound running back that's going to get you 5 and 6 yards when Cam was getting 15 and 20. Same type athleticism, but it's just a little bit different. So Arkansas, I think you can see them anywhere from 2, honestly, to probably 5 or 6. That's what I don't think they can finish at the bottom, but there's a chance they could be a 7 and 5 level team. Texas 8 and 4. I mean, Texas A&M is next. They're preseason number 2 in the conference. It's a big deal for Texas A&M. After they beat Alabama last year, they ended up going, guess what? 8 and 4, which is a pretty consistent thing other than the COVID year. I think they went 9 and 1 or 10 and 2 or something like that in the COVID year with Kellen Mond at quarterback. Those guys were okay last year. They had 21 players that were in position to be an all-conference type player. You know, you could win it all, and then they just didn't have a quarterback. So Texas A&M kind of sits firmly in the show me section of the SEC standings. You're going to need to show me. You're going to have to do it before I believe you can do it. It's kind of almost like Ole Miss baseball was before they won the national championship. You're going to have to show me. I'm not going to take your word for it anymore. You're going to have to honestly do the right thing and show me what's going on. But Texas A&M is a team that could honestly finish second. They could potentially win the Western Division. They could also finish fifth. And they have finished fifth in this situation before. Before anybody tells me that this can't happen. They have done it before. Now the question becomes, is Max Johnson, the transfer from LSU, going to be the quarterback and the dude? Or will it be a healthy Haynes King, who got injured last year in a struggle bus game against Colorado State, or Colorado. It was against Colorado. In Denver that they barely squeaked by and got the W for. But I think that was the game that Haynes King got hurt. And this was the week before he threw 3 picks or something like that. So you have Texas A&M that's going to Max Johnson, Haynes King. Let's see what's going on. Let's see who has the upper hand between either of these quarterbacks. Neither one of them are overly impressive. Both of these at best, I think you're looking at a game manager. And in that case, I think Max Johnson is probably going to win it. Now, number 1, Alabama. The Alabama Crimson Tide. And this is not the Alabama of last year, though. I think a lot of people assume it's going to be the Alabama of last year. But also, I think they make light of the loss of Brian Robinson and what he could give them. He allowed them to play murder ball a little bit. Jahmyr Gibbs isn't that guy. We'll see if Jace McClellan is that guy. But Alabama, at their best, has always had a jitterbug all-purpose guy and a battering ram in their backfield. I don't know. They're going to have to prove that they have the battering ram. Jahmyr Gibbs is not that guy. He cannot play murder ball. He cannot do what Brian Robinson did to Ole Miss last year, where he ran the ball 35 times for 170 yards or something like that. Just go get 5 yards and just plug it away. I don't know if there's anybody on the roster that can do that. There's also nobody on the roster that can match what Jameson Williams gave him last year. Now, there could be some freshmen that step up. This is Alabama. There's 5 stars everywhere. I get that. But looking at it on the surface, and people are always saying this could be Nick Saban's best team. I'm a little bit show me when it comes to that, honestly. Because the Jameson Williams factor is gone. And we saw what he looked like when he had to use receivers other than Jameson Williams against Georgia last year. He's still a really good quarterback. You saw passes to hit receivers in the hands. They just didn't catch them. But there's depth. There's tight end. The receiving room doesn't look the same as it did last year. John Mechie is going to sit out this season, and I hope he gets well soon because he has a treatable form of leukemia. So he'll be off this season. But the person that brought that is Jermaine Burton. They brought him in from Georgia. If you think Jermaine Burton is going to come in and be Jameson Williams, that's not the type of player he is. He's the type of player that is going to come in and be John Mechie. So who is the Jameson Williams? Now, defensively, with Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, yes, that's going to be a mess for people. If they're good on the back end to match how good they are on the front end, this team could be very, very good. Now, I question Henry To'oTo'o. I question their linebackers and all that in the RPO game. The RPOs can take advantage of linebackers. We've seen this over and over. That's the reason Alabama has gone from giving up 9 points a game to giving up about 20. It's the advent of the RPO. We'll see. Alabama can finish first and they can finish second, and I do not see really anything that close. Now, when we come back, we will talk about the Ole Miss Rebels, and they are preseason 4th in the SEC media poll. And I will tell you the range in which I think they can do. We'll talk a little bit about quarterback competition. We'll talk about the rooms that improvement has been made and rooms that might need a little bit of help moving into fall camp. We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute, right after we come back from these messages. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. including iTunes. So do not forget to rate and review us on iTunes. You can say whatever you want to say. Just say it with a 5-star review. Just give us a 5-star review. Talk about how I'm narcissistic and there's different avenues of my show that you do not like. But just say it with a 5-star review. That helps others that are going to find the podcast when they put their search terms of Ole Miss in the app. The Locked On Ole Miss podcast will come up at a higher rank. That it's all about the algorithm, and that's the whole thing with analytics now. Everything is about an algorithm, and it's absolutely nuts. So, thank you for that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Ole Miss now. We've talked about all the other teams in the league. We've gone from bottom up to top, and we skipped over Ole Miss for now. Ole Miss is predicted. I'll show it right here. They're predicted 4th in the SEC. There they are right there. And honestly, that's a pretty good position for them. That's a pretty good position for them. And I do want to thank Locked On Auburn for the graphic, essentially. As you can see, that's the reason Tank Bigsby ended up at the photo. But I just had this and put it in here because it listed the top 7. Now, Ole Miss, in the running back room, they absolutely upgraded in the running back room. Absolutely. With the quarterback room, the talent honestly is about the same. You still have to get to the point of development where Matt Corral was. The talent's about the same, though. If you look at the quarterback room in 2019 and the quarterback room now, about the same. Offensive line, I think plus offensive line, Nick Broker at guard, moving Jeremy James to left tackle, bringing in Mason Brooks at right tackle. I think that's at least a wash. I think the wide receiver position we've improved that over last year. If you remember last year, Braylon Sanders and Dontario Drummond, you had a deep threat and you had the guy that was getting work done over the middle. You replace those with a Jalen Robinson, with a Jordan Watkins, with a Malik Heath. There's a bunch of players that can kind of step into that and add a healthy Jonathan Mingo. You have a chance for a better wide receiver room. You noticing a trend that I'm saying right now? Talent-wise, there's been a massive talent infusion to this team, and each position room is in better shape than it was. That's what I'm saying there. Defensive side of the ball. Defensive line, J.J. Pegues, Jared Ivey, those guys coming in. The defensive line goes about 3 deep. Remember, it's a 3-2-6. That's 5-man basically in the front and middle and 6 on the back end. So they go 3 deep of that 3. And they can play some 4-line stuff with J.J. Pegues because he's a true 3 technique. And that's the thing about this defense. When they ask you, it's like, what does this defense do this a little bit differently? It's like, well, they've replaced the 3 technique with a defensive back. And they're like, well, how did you do that? Well, fits are fits. But that's the person that kind of changed over. And because of that, they have a chance to go 3 deep on the defensive line. Linebacker Troy Brown, he's a Butkus watch list guy. Corey Coleman is going, I think, make some noise this season. Former Big 12 co-defensive rookie of the year. We have both of those, by the way, from 2020. And in the defensive backfield, you've got a bunch of grown men back there. Otis Reese, A.J. Finley, even Miles Battle, DeAndre Prince. Those are just true men and the leaders of this defense that are going back to the backside of the ball. And I don't think that we should overlook what they are going to provide for the Ole Miss team moving forward. Because 6 players, 6 out of 11 defensive backs in this defense. Now, remember Davison Igbinosun. Remember Tysheem Johnson. They're going to play a ton. The young DBs, I think they're going to get on the field a little bit as well. Now, remember what I talked about yesterday. If you look at our roster, okay, Lane Kiffin's been here this will be his third season. And if you look at our roster of all the players that they signed from high school, of all the players that they got in the transfer portal, you can see that they're real slow with high school players in development. Real slow. And the reason it is because they're more difficult to develop than somebody that already has the base. If you get somebody that is a freshman or a sophomore that has been in a college weight program for multiple years, it's easier to teach them how to play football if you get the size strength thing where you need it to be. You have guys that you've seen them in the system. You know they're players. They're not signing guys that didn't work out. Because here's the deep dark secret that happened with teams, let's say 2008. Let's say 2015. All the players that you signed didn't work out, and there's not really a whole bunch you could do with them. Yeah, it might have had an 85-man roster, but it was probably 55 dudes that could play a little bit. A bunch of roster fillers after that. Now, with this transfer rule and what's going to happen is that 25 players is going to get pushed down to their level. Players are going to rise up to their level. View the Southeastern Conference, view the Big Ten, view even the Big 12 as the top rung that people are trying to get to. View somebody that signs with D2 that might have been missed, which is really hard to miss people now, but let's say somebody is missed and ends up having to go to D2. Delta State, he's a linebacker. Signs out of high school. He is 6'3", 185 pounds, signs with Delta State. He's a sophomore. He's 6'3", 235 pounds, and runs a 4.4 40. Do you think he's going to stay at Delta State? No. He's on his way to Southern Miss as soon as possible. And if that season with Southern Miss works out, he's on his way to Oxford or Starkville. That is the way this is going to work. People that get upset and start looking at high school recruiting, especially in June and July, there's not many ways I can help you. You're looking for a reason to be upset because it just doesn't matter. It's going to go from the primary way to construct a roster in college sports to like 4th out of 5. All of these companies are set up to find high school players and get them to college. Everything is built up for that. And now it's about to go to 4th out of 5. That's going to bring the NIL dollars down. The thing that made the NIL market go so high is the fact that it was the primary way still to build your roster. NIL is going to become a show me thing. The cats that were getting $4 million a year might be getting $200,000 in 5 years. And then you go on and transfer up to a Texas as a junior, and then you have a chance to make your money. It's not inducements. See, there are two types of people in this world. One claims that just because everybody else is cheating, you shouldn't have to pay for what you're doing. No, if you get caught, you pay for it, period. If 3 people are speeding and one person gets pulled over, that one person gets a ticket. He doesn't get off because you couldn't get the other 2 as well. And 2, listen to this. The boosters that are in the black market, they are dabbling in the inducement game, that trying to do the free-for-all now. Whenever all of this changes, they're going to kind of disappear a little bit. With the TV money being what they're about to be, it's going to be higher than any year that boosters that brought in. They're going to need boosters less and less. The boosters are going to gravitate towards these NIL collectives. And basically what you're going to have is a whole bunch of people that are going to realize their influence in the athletic department is less and less. Because they chose, other than the athletic department, to where influence is a perk, they take NIL where the only person that really listens to what's going on is the head football coach. Not going to bother the athletic director at all. And they're going to lose their influence. And everything's going to change in college athletics, and it's going to be really cool. I'm pretty fired up about this, actually. But we'll see exactly how it goes. Anyway, before I get out of here, I do want to tell you that you can get more on the SEC by making Locked On SEC your second listen every day. Everyday host Chris Gordy and his local experts, that's me, of Locked On take you across the SEC in 30 minutes. Make Locked On SEC your second listen. Locked On SEC. Anyway, had fun today. Great show. Thank you very much. Tomorrow, tune in. We should have a little bit of fun there as well. But until then, peace.